Hello, my name is David Katz and welcome to my YouTube channel, katzcollective.net. In this video I'm going to be talking to you today about rewiring your brain, what that means, and how to go about doing it. So, rewiring your brain is basically a scientific term for changing the way you think. Rewiring the neural pathways, rewiring the habits that your brain has and has developed for newer, hopefully better ways of thinking and acting. If you think about it like you would any other habit, essentially your brain has these integrated kind of ways of acting and reacting and thinking based off of past experiences, your environment, yada yada yada, etc., etc. You've developed these habits through time, but like any other habit, you can change it. So how do we do that, though? In order to rewire your brain, in order to change the way you think or the way you act, it's through practice. It's through awareness. It's through figuring out the habits you have and then learning to work with them and try to create better habits. As an example, let's say that you were let's say you're on a date with a girl or a guy or whoever. Let's say you're on a date, and whenever you go on a date, you get kind of anxious. Let's say it feels very important that you get validated from the other person. That's a habit. That's all that is. That isn't a fact. That isn't true in any particular way, but it feels like it is because that's just how you are wired to think in those types of situations. So you're on a date with someone, and all of a sudden these thoughts come up in your head of, I hope they like me. I hope I'm coming across well. I hope that I'm not saying something stupid. Your brain automatically goes to that place in your head and thinks that way whenever you go on a date. So how do we change that? How do we rewire our brains to think differently in that situation? Whenever you notice your brain going to that place, whenever you notice yourself thinking that way, understand that that's just a habit. And in order to change that habit, we must come up with a rational way of dealing with that thought process. So if you are feeling like, I hope they like me, I hope I'm coming across well, think about that as if your friend were saying that. And they were telling you the story of how they went on a date and this was how they were feeling. How would you console your friend if they were to tell you that? How would you talk to your friend? I know what I would probably say is, what's most important is not whether they like you or not. There are plenty of fish in the sea. I know you've probably heard that one. But that's just a nice way of trying to console someone, but ultimately it's true. It's very true. So we need to learn to console ourselves in the same way that we would a friend. We need to learn to change the way that we talk to ourselves, very similarly to how we would our best friends, with compassion. So, as the example then, not only would you be saying something like, oh, there were plenty of fish in the sea, but something maybe along the lines of, what's most important is not whether I get their approval, but being okay with not getting their approval. Not with how I'm coming across, but being okay with however I'm coming across. If you were going to rewire your brain for, in my opinion, the most important reasons, which is to create a healthier version of you, a happier version of you, a more successful and confident version of you, then you need to stop being hard on yourself. You need to learn that every negative thing that you go through is nothing more than how you think about it. Of course, pain will come up, but your suffering comes from you. So in order to change your suffering, you have to change the way you think. In order to change your life to become more confident, you have to change the way you think. In order to change the way you think, you have to actively identify the way you think and become more aware of what you're thinking. Then rationally and compassionately working with those thoughts. Let's break this down into simpler terms. Step 1. Become aware of how you think. Oh, I need their approval. I hope they like me. I hope that I'm coming across well. Step 2. Learn to work with your thoughts. I know that I feel in this moment like I need their approval, but that isn't actually true. I know I would like to come across well, but ultimately I have to be more okay with however I come across. I know that it feels like I need their approval, but what's most important is getting my own approval. These are the types of ways that you would rationally work and change the way you think. Step 3, be patient with this work, because it's going to take time. I know it can feel hard and frustrating to go through certain feelings, to go through certain situations. But anything worth doing takes time. Working with yourself, changing your habits, will all take time. But it's well worth it. I've been doing this now for about 4 years, where I work with the way I think, where I try to change those habits that I have, those places that I go to, where I'm very negative on myself and very critical on myself. I try to learn to be more compassionate with myself. I'm far from perfect at it, but I've improved a lot at it. And I think if I were to take the quality of my life from where I was 4 years ago to where I am today, you know, it's such a broad statement to put a number on the quality of your life. But I'll give it a shot and say that if I look back on my previous self, I would say that my quality of life compared to where it is now had to be about a 5. Versus where it is now, I would say it's an 8 or a 9. And I think that most of that has to do with the way I think. Who I am has changed only because of the way that I think about myself. My world has changed only because of the way that I think about my world. That's it. You all are capable of changing yourselves and changing the world just by the way you think. That's all it takes. You don't have to look a certain way. You don't have to act a certain way. All you have to do is change the way that you think. Your confidence comes from how you think about yourself. So if you learn to be patient, and you learn to be aware, and you learn to work with your thoughts, you will become more confident, more successful, more compassionate in time. Step 4. Learn to go through the ups and downs of the journey. You know, your journey is going to take time, and there's going to be a lot of times where it feels difficult to do this work, to do anything worth doing. And I think that in order to become successful at something, we have to embrace our failures, our mistakes. Because they're going to happen whether we like it or not. So learn to be okay with failing. to be okay with making mistakes. And do it anyway, whatever it is you want. Step 5. Focus on progress and not perfection. Because there's no such thing as perfection. There's only progress. So don't give yourself a hard time for where you want to be, but instead focus on where you are and how far you've come. My name is David Katz, and you are watching katzcollective.net. And if you've enjoyed this video, please go ahead and subscribe below. Check out my blog at katzkollective.net. Thank you.